Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Destree Bascos. I'm a consultant to SANDAG's ICommute Employer Program. Welcome to today's webinar on new to telework culture. We're very excited today to have everyone online. Before we get started, I do want to take care of a couple of housekeeping items. You'll see a box on the right-hand side of your screen for questions. Please feel free to type in your questions throughout the presentation, and we'll reserve some time at the end to address them. Also, we are recording this webinar in case you'd like to watch it again or share it with your organization. We'll be emailing out a copy to all participants later today. So as we get started, today's agenda will cover a brief overview of ICommute. We will also recap the COVID-19 stay-at-home mandate. We will also cover a couple of tips for working from home. And we're super excited to feature employers to talk about their experiences for moving their workforce working remotely. Today we'll have Dominic Lupo, Department Manager of AECOM. He will cover tools that have been successful in transitioning their entire workforce to working remotely. And he'll talk about setting up protocols with employees, scheduling work time, as well as communicating with each other. We also have Brian Nordmann, Chief Information Officer at Dudek. He will cover the IT and IS aspects of working remotely, highlighting some of their challenges and solutions. So let's get started with the overview of ICommute. ICommute is the Transportation Demand Management Program at SANDAG. Through our programs and services, we promote and encourage sustainable commute choices across the region, mainly through employers and key points of contacts we call ETCs, also known as Employee Transportation Corridors. I'm sure several of you on the phone are already participating in our program, and it's really great to hear from all those other new employers as well. The overarching goal of the programs are to reduce drive-alone trips, reduce traffic congestion, and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We do that by offering free assistance, setting up or improving employee benefits programs with the employers. To do so, we survey employees to find out how they're getting to work and which modes they'd be interested in trying for a different commute. We map out results and offer a trip reduction plan. Marketing materials and some special incentives are also something we offer that work for employers that work with us. There is an opportunity to also be recognized for commuter program excellence through our Diamond Award program. The Diamond Awards recognizes employers throughout the region with exemplary commuter benefits program. In light of the recent current events, our effort has really focused on promoting telework resources for our employers. As you may know, and as a recap, Governor Newsom has proclaimed a stay-at-home order, covering all these parts and really transferring a lot of the commuters that tend to go to the office to work remotely. With the stay-at-home mandate, many of our employers had to move partial or even all of their workforces to work remotely. In some cases, the transition was fast and abrupt, with communications to follow from employers. So today, what we want to do is not only give you the information to keep updated with the COVID-19 virus, but also provide you with resources to help you communicate with your employees about how to navigate toward this temporary work condition. So the next couple of slides that I will cover are some tips that I can share about your basic equipment setup at home. You can use this information for a newsletter or even daily tips for your employees to serve as reminders when they work from home temporarily. As most of us have been already working from home at least 1 or 2 weeks, we're still trying to navigate our workspaces and trying to figure out what is comfortable in terms of how we work on a day-to-day basis at home. So here we have kind of the basic office equipment that you have is your chair. I'm pretty sure most of us did not bring our office chair home, but are looking retrospectively thinking that maybe we should have. So in terms of the chair that you may be using, we want to make sure we practice the fundamentals of a good posture. So it's worth taking the time to communicate to your employees about how to set up these basics correctly. In terms of your chair, your forearm should be level with your work surface or keyboard. Hips should be level with or slightly above your knees. Now the challenge becomes with the chair that you have at home, it may lack the adjustable levels that we're used to with our office chair. So depending on your height of your chair, you may need some cushions to create some height for yourself, or even to be able to raise your feet a little off the floor. So you could create a footstool with a large book or maybe a box. Sometimes it's just a little bit more comfortable when you have 1 foot raised and alternate as you feel necessary. Your back should also be supported. So I'm pretty sure we're all missing that embedded lumbar support that we had in our office chair. So if you need added lumbar support, you can also use a roll tower or pillows to support your back. The other main tool that I'm pretty sure most of our employees are working with is our laptop or your computer screen. So again, take the time to position yourself and how you look at your monitor. Your screen should be centrally positioned, should be arm's length away, and the screen should be angled or raised for eye height. I'm pretty sure if you're working from a laptop, you'll need to raise your screen so that the top of the screen matches your eye level. You can do so by stacking printed paper or getting a stack of sturdy books. In my case, my laptop is actually on a sturdy cake stand. If you don't have a mouse or a keyboard, you can also tilt the base of your laptop so that you can achieve a more comfortable typing position. You could use a book to position it. The next slide is something I think we've all heard in various webinar series for telework and articles, but it's really being able to embrace the portability of your laptop and making sure you take regular breaks. These two actually are tips that go hand in hand. So if we take a moment to think about our work as well as the employee's work, we are normally sitting at a desk for most of the day with a laptop. But if we think about the other tasks involved in our day, we think about taking calls, joining online meetings, writing notes, reading, thinking, and planning. These all can be done away from your computer. So think about some other spaces in your home that might offer a peaceful and quiet area for tasks that you can do 20 minutes or less with a minimal interaction with your laptop. By taking these regular breaks, you can be able to move and stretch and help your body not be in a constant position of looking over your monitor. Additionally, when we think about how we work in the office, we also take the time to walk to get a snack, take lunch, even walk to the conference room for meetings, or even commute to different meetings. And so what we want to try to do here is simulate kind of your office day with what you do at home. So for example, if we're thinking about a commute to and from a meeting, it's best to schedule maybe a walk before or after a meeting. Regular movement and varying tasks will help us keep comfortable and productive while we're home. So take the time to remind employees to practice good postures and form healthy habits. This is just a snapshot of the telework resources we have to offer to you and your employees. We have additional articles and links and tips for time management, working from home with kids, and even a remote worker guide for excellence on ICommuteSD.com. I'll bring up the website again later in the presentation for your reference. Now that we're a little bit more comfortable in our home workspaces, I actually want to turn it over to our presenters today. We're super excited because these two companies have been our Platinum Diamond Award recipients, and they're eager to share what they learned through this emergency and temporary way of working. So I will turn it over to Dominic Lupo. Again, he is the department manager at AECOM. We have worked with AECOM for several years, and they are actually in their third year of receiving a platinum level. They are a tried and true Bike to Work Day participant. They encourage green commuting by providing employees with a subsidy for transit, as well as a robust, flexible work schedule. So all these in place have helped them to really communicate with their workforce and transition them into working remotely. So Dominic, you're up next. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Destree. Appreciate it, and very excited to join everyone today on this webinar. And thank you all for taking time out of your day to listen to us, and hopefully we can provide some insight and some tips and tricks that we've done here at AECOM. You know, AECOM's a fairly large firm, one of the largest A&E companies in the world. Locally in San Diego, we have about 350 people. In the West region, which I'm a part of, we have several offices. And one of the benefits that we enjoyed as we all transitioned to a complete work at home status is that we had a program for work at home, and we've had one in place for several years, and a large portion of our staff already were working remotely 1 or 2 days a week. Everyone in our company has a laptop, has a VPN connection, and we all use Microsoft Teams. That made the transition go a bit more smoothly for us. One of the things I do want to talk about is safety. Safety is very important, and we typically think about safety on a construction site, as you might see here in the picture, but working at home provides its own issues with safety and its own concerns. And Destree explained a lot about the ergonomics and a little bit about the exercise. One of the things I do want to echo is your workstation setup and making sure that we get regular exercise, because we are moving less. We aren't getting out and about as we are accustomed to. We have to make it a point to get up, walk around, take walks around your neighborhood, walk around your house, get up and stand up when you're on the phone, things like that. And the other one is nutrition. We're out of our element now. Our normal routine has been interrupted, and sometimes that affects how we eat, when we eat, what we're eating. So we've told our employees to pay a little extra attention to how they are feeding themselves and make sure that they're getting the nutrition that they need. Internet connectivity has become an issue. I'm sure those of you that have transitioned to work at home have experienced slow internet feeds, VPN issues, and whatnot. Some of the things that we've seen help is when you're working at home, log off devices that don't need to be on the internet at the time. It could be a Amazon Echo, a Google Home, maybe you have thermostats, maybe you've got other smart devices that you don't realize are accessing the internet in the background and don't need to be. If you shut those things off, that can help. Don't stream music or videos while you are actively connected trying to work, because that reduces your bandwidth. You can also put some of those other devices, your cell phone, a tablet or whatnot, on cell service only. Don't let them connect to your Wi-Fi. That also can help speed things up when you're working. Contact your service provider. Sometimes there's a way to upgrade to a faster connection. It may not cost much, or it may even be a promotion where you can get a free upgrade for a month or two, things like that. Those of you that use VPN or remote desktop, there are ways to connect without going through VPN. There's certain softwares that don't need VPN, that only need your internet connection. When you connect through a VPN, it does automatically slow down your abilities to pull files and whatnot. So, for example, at AECOM, we don't need VPN connection to work with our email, with Microsoft Outlook, with Microsoft Teams. We also are utilizing third-party file management tools like SharePoint and ProjectWise to house our documents. You don't need VPN to get to those. So therefore, instead of trying to pull documents off of our server in the office, we're pulling them off of a cloud on a SharePoint or ProjectWise site, which is much, much faster. When it comes to equipment, I want to echo what Destree said. Get yourself monitors, keyboards, mice if you can. It really helps your ergonomics, and get yourself a good chair or reconfigure the chair you have, as Destree mentioned. When it comes to using the phone, a lot of folks are using their cell phones. I would encourage you to get a headset, earbuds, something that allows you to not have to hold the phone to your ear for long phone calls. That will help you out a lot. The work setup, where you set up to do your work, is important. Find a place in your home that is conducive to what you need to do. Some people have an office at home. Some people set up in the kitchen or the garage or some other area where they feel they are most efficient. I encourage you to do that, to try to limit the distractions that you have so that you can feel like you are able to work and focus and be efficient. I also want to talk about schedule. We found that some people were working hours that weren't regular, that they felt sort of obligated to be online from the time they woke up to the time they go to bed. And I wanted to tell people what we did with our staff is we encouraged them to set a schedule. You're going to work from 8 to 5. You're going to take an hour lunch break from 12 to 1 or something else. Maybe people want to work from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., take a break to be with their family for a couple hours, or they have to help their children with online schooling for a couple hours, and they're back online from noon to 3, and then they're helping out with something else, and then back online from 6 to 8. Whatever the case may be, set yourself a schedule. Take your breaks that you need to take. Make sure you schedule a lunch time. And then when you sign off for the day, when you've decided this is my end time, be that 5 o'clock, 3 p.m., 8 p.m., whatever the case may be disciplined about it. Don't go back and check your email. Don't go back and continue to work. You owe yourself that time just as if you were working in the office. And communication, this is the last topic I want to cover. It's been vital. It's been a huge plus to us transitioning to a complete work at home environment. I would encourage over communication. And what I mean by that is increase the typical communication that you would have with your coworkers 2 to 3 times. If you have a team meeting once a week, meet with them 2 or 3 times during the week. That personal communication, that personal coordination is what we're missing the most. By everybody working at home, there's an underlying feeling of isolation. And so being able to reach out to your coworkers, could be an instant message, an email, a phone call, a group meeting, an online chat, whatever the case may be. I encourage that. And ask the tough questions. Ask people what's not working well. What are their challenges? What is being done well? And then share those with your team. Share those with your group. Communicate. If you take one thing away, I think that's been a big plus for us. And I'll take questions at the end. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dominic. I couldn't agree more that communication is very integral as we work remotely. We are in this together as we are experiencing all the same types of challenges when we're working remotely. And so staying connected with one another really helps to enforce the unity that we need to have to be productive, as well as get through the situation. So this actually leads us to the next presenter in terms of trying to communicate and connect with each other. Brian Nordmann is the Chief Information Officer with Dudek. They are a Platinum Diamond Award winner. They've developed a formal commuter policy. They also offer pre-tax benefits for transit, as well as have a bike incentive. They also are a regular host to our Bike to Work Day pit stops on a key coastal bike corridor. So welcome, Brian. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Destree. Thanks for having me. And good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. been some really good topics discussed so far this morning, and today I want to talk a little bit more about how Dudek has positioned ourselves from an IT perspective to handle the current telework situation. But first, a little bit about Dudek. We are a private employee-owned company with our headquarters right on the beach in Encinitas, as you can see there in the picture. We actually just turned 40 last month. We started as a two-man engineering firm and now have about 700 staff that help our clients with their built and natural infrastructure projects with services from kind of cradle to grave through planning, design, and permitting through construction. Those staff are located in about 17 offices, mainly located here on the West Coast, but we also have staff out in the field doing field work and at project sites nationwide. Oops, go back one slide here. So a little bit about how we were set up from a technology perspective before we were forced into this telework situation. We had positioned our staff to be highly mobile, so we were in a pretty good position there. We had standardized on laptops with just a few exceptions. The main goal there was really for staff to be mobile so they can quickly pick up and get to a client site or pop into a conference room. But before the coronavirus situation, we really didn't have an official work from home policy. We did have the technology to be able to support staff working when they're away from the office, you know, in the field, client sites, and of course to connect in on the night or weekend to meet a deadline. But this really forced our hand with developing procedures and best practices to work from home, which I'll talk a little bit more about. From a technology perspective, a couple of years ago, we made the decision for a number of reasons to become a cloud-first company, operating primarily out of the cloud, and equipping all of our staff with laptops with VPN. We do have some high-end compute needs where we need to process large image and video workloads, and we have those running up in Azure using a technology called WorkSpot, which is a virtual desktop in the cloud. And we were actually mid-transition moving our communications platform to Zoom. A couple months ago, we had transitioned all of our meetings to Zoom, and we had actually planned in April we were going to be converting from Skype for our chat and phone system over to Zoom. I'll talk a little bit more about that in our response as well. From a security perspective, it's obviously a hot topic with everyone transitioning to work from home. There's obviously a number of considerations there. First and foremost, all these laptops now connecting in from outside the office. We use a security agent that works both on or off the network, so allows web filtering and security policies to apply regardless of where you are. So in short, we were pretty well positioned to allow staff from work from everywhere. And you know, we obviously never envisioned a scenario like the pandemic, which would cause such a sudden shift. But when that did happen, which for us 3 weeks ago today, we made the announcement that starting on Friday the 13th, all staff at our offices would start working from home like many other companies. This was about a week before the governor's shelter-in-place mandate. So what we did was we instructed our staff to take their laptops home and use VPN. They're pretty much situated there. We did have a couple rare instances where there was no home internet. We needed to assist staff in getting set up with a hotspot. But really, one of the bigger concerns for us, since we did have the foundation in place, was that home office setup. We touched on some really good topics earlier today. From an IT perspective, staff are really used to working with dual monitors to be productive, and just going to a single monitor really does reduce productivity. So we worked out a program where we offered staff the ability to order a single external monitor, which could be drop shipped to their home. We worked with CDW on arranging that, so they could essentially have the two monitors. So we did need to make a few adjustments on the IT side. We did have a VPN that allowed for basically all the staff to connect remotely, but we found early on that some of our higher end use cases where people are copying large images and video data we started approaching our bandwidth limits. So luckily for us, with running our VPN gateway up in Azure, we were able to put in an order to increase that and do that pretty quickly. The traditional on-premise based data centers, obviously there we would have had to been ordering larger circuits and ordering new equipment to support that. So we're pretty fortunate there. Another decision we made, we decided to accelerate our migration to Zoom. We rolled out the chat platform earlier than we had originally expected, and now we're able to offer our staff more mobile and some new group chat capabilities. So yeah, long story short, I think a number of the decisions we've made over the past couple of years, while not necessarily considering a global pandemic, have really positioned us to adapt for these sorts of situations by having more flexible and mobile platforms. Some bumps along the way, but we've adapted. Our staff have hit the ground running and continuing to serve our clients. So with that, Destree, I'll throw it back to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. I know majority of our employers probably on this call are really going through some of these challenges as we're trying to connect, employees together. And technology is a really integral part of that. So thank you for sharing some of your experience with us so we can have the right questions to ask when we coordinate with our IT and IS teams within our own companies. So this brings me to a slide that I referenced earlier about resources. Please bookmark your page for ICommuteSD.com. It has additional telework resources that is available to you as employers. There's sample policies, guidelines, case studies, and frequently asked questions. In terms of communicating with your employees and teleworkers, there are more tips and articles to help you share information on how people can navigate working remotely. Again, there's tips for time management, goal setting, and even working from home with kids. So make sure you have this resource accessible to yourselves online, as well as use them for your own internal communications. The SANDAG iCommute program can really help set up or supplement your telework program. So let us know how else we can help. If there's other telework, maybe topics that you want us to cover in future webinars, feel free to submit some suggestions. So now, this brings us to the Q&A portion of the webinar. Joining us for this portion is Deborah Jones. She is an account executive for the iCommute Employer Program, and she'll actually be reading out the questions that have been received thus far.
Thanks, Destree, and thanks, Dominic and Brian. Very helpful tips. We really appreciate you being here and sharing your experiences with the audience here. Yes, we've received a few questions, and I'll read the one that's kind of applicable to the resources that we have on our webpage that you just showed, Destree. This question asks if we recommend developing a formal telework policy or asking employees to sign a telework agreement. Is that necessary or isn't it necessary? In a perfect world, and the way we've managed our employer outreach program in the past is we have encouraged employers to have a formal telework policy, and that is so that they can anticipate issues that might come up in the future as they roll it out. So for example, how to determine who is eligible to telework in your workforce, questions about equipment and your workspace, expectations regarding communication style and stipends, etc. But of course, we've been thrown into this telework environment due to the health concerns of COVID-19. And so maybe some employers haven't had a chance to formalize their policy. While we're probably going to be in an extended stay, considering what's happening with the virus spread, I encourage employers to go on our webpage and check out the sample policy that we have linked there. so you can get an idea of what a policy would look like. We also have a resource regarding a telework supervisor to employee agreement, and there it just kind of sets out the expectations by both parties and is a good place to kind of set the format. Let me just ask Brian and Dominic if they have a formal telework policy, and is it applicable to what we've been doing, what we're experiencing now. Dominic, do you want to start?
Yeah, thank you, Deborah. We do have a formal telework policy. It's been in place for several years. We don't ask our employees to sign an agreement or anything along those lines. We do ask them, though, to read the policy. It's not very long, and it talks about their obligations to when they're working at home, their communication with their supervisor. They do need to get approval from their supervisor to be able to work at home, and if that becomes a regular practice, it can be a one-time approval. And it talks about some of the tips and tricks that I mentioned earlier about how to be efficient working from home. It's worked pretty well. We like to give all of our employees that flexibility. We believe it makes for a more happy workforce, a more flexible workforce, and a better way to serve our clients.
Terrific. Thank you.
Yeah.
Brian, do you want to add
Yep. Sure. Yep. This is Brian. Yeah, well, we do have a sort of a flexible work environment. We actually did not have a formal official work from home policy. So as you kind of mentioned, we were, as the situation evolved, we got together and we really developed a lot of these best practices and guidance for both the management and the employees. So we've developed an internal site on our intranet and a regular cadence of communication that's been going out to staff about best practices. A lot of the things we talked about today, a lot of the resources you talked about, we pulled from and have been providing guidance and best practice. And, we think this, obviously going forward, even after this situation, there are a lot of lessons learned, and we'll be able to kind of move forward with more official policies and guidance.
That's great. Thank you. I have a question here from an audience member, specifically for you, Dominic, and you too, Brian, if you have anything to add. So the question is, how much, if anything, are you offering employees to set up their home workspace? For example, getting a decent chair, headphones, etc. Then if you hadn't offered this before, would you consider offering this kind of stipend for their current work from home situation? So if anybody remains as teleworkers after the mandate is lifted.
Yeah, what we've done for several years now is, as monitors and keyboards, mice, and whatnot are upgraded in the office, we keep the old ones in storage and offer those to employees who do work at home on a regular basis. So a lot of our employees were already set up from that perspective. For the ones that weren't, we took those on a case-by-case basis, and for the most part, we would approve the expenses to get them set up from home. It tends to make sense to support the employees in that matter. Even from a financial perspective, it makes sense. But to be able to give an employee the right tools to be successful, we support that.
Great, thank you. So I have a question here about for Brian about your choice of using Zoom versus, for example, Microsoft Teams. How did you come to that decision?
Sure. Yep. Good question. This was actually an evaluation we completed months before the whole current COVID situation. For us, we did evaluate both Teams and Zoom pretty thoroughly, along with a couple others. We actually are a Microsoft shop, so we did have a preference towards Microsoft. But ultimately, in doing a full evaluation, really the differentiator for us was the conference room solution. Obviously, not that important right now with the offices closed, but for us, we found that the setup and the ability, the ease of use going into a conference room and quickly getting everyone joined the meetings was really what set the two apart. Other than that, they're very similar, have similar capabilities. But yes, that's sort of what drove our decision.
Okay, great. Do either one of you have a call center, or are you receiving customer calls? Because we have a question here about how in a call center setting, a home office can allow for multiple incoming calls at one time. Can either of you talk about that?
Sure. We don't have a call center, but all of our employees have what we call Jabber soft phones. And so all of our desk phones are available to the employees as an application on their laptops. And about half of our company has already transitioned to only using the soft phone. So those of us in San Diego, we don't have desk phones anymore. Every call we get comes onto our computer or our cell phone, or both. We can set it up how we like it. So the main office number is still working. It is still being monitored in all of our offices. And so it's really no different from that perspective at AECOM.
Great.
Yep, similarly here at Dudek, the majority of our staff are on a phone system that has a soft client, meaning it rings an application on their computer as well as potentially their mobile phone if they have the app installed. We do not have a call center. I guess the closest thing we would have is we have, obviously, me running the IT department, we've got the IT service desk. So there is a call queue, and they essentially picked up their, brought their headset home, and they're able to participate in that call queue as if they were in the office using the application on their desktops as well.
Okay.
Hi everyone, it's Destree again. Just want to call out a friendly reminder that we have reached the 40-minute mark for our webinar. If you need to hop off, feel free to do so. We will have a full recording of the webinar and the Q&A portion emailed later today to all the participants. Otherwise, we can stay on the line to answer a couple more questions.
Okay, thanks, Destree. Yeah, I have sorry, for the person who did ask about the call center, if you want to contact the ICommute team, we can research that for you, because we're pretty networked with other employer programs across the nation. We can find out about that call center question. So here I have a question from a gal who wants to know if you two are finding, or even in our experience, if we're finding that team members are less talkative in a video chat meeting versus an in-person meeting. So do you have any tips about how to encourage meeting participation with your team members? Are you guys seeing that? Brian, you want to start?
Yeah, I can start. Yeah, obviously, there's a different dynamic via a web conference versus an in-person live meeting. For us, we've really encouraged the use of webcams. We found that has helped quite a bit. Just being able to still see face to face, although you're not in the same room, that does help to some degree. We have distributed staff, so we're already leveraging video conferencing quite a bit, and people participate. So we haven't necessarily seen a big drop off, but we definitely we had seen an increased participation when we moved from a more audio-based system to a system that leverages video more.
Mm-hmm. Dominic, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I do. I want to echo what Brian said about the video chat. That has been, I think we've seen a big improvement when we do that, and we do encourage that. It does certainly make people more participate a little bit more. And one of the other a couple other things we've done is assign people certain parts of the meeting, and whether that's a safety moment or a tip and trick or a quality moment or something else to force them sort of to be involved. And the other thing we've done is kind of doing around the horn. So when we do like a team check-in, we'll just go one by one for each each person, and it can be a simple question: say, how are you doing? How are you adjusting? Is there anything you need? What's working well for you, and whatnot? So just give everybody the floor at one point or another. And then the other thing that we've tried to do is mix it up a little bit. Instead of having your Monday morning 10 a.m. team meeting, maybe do a Monday 5 p.m. and call it a happy hour, and tell everybody, hey, we're going to be off the clock at 5:30, but we're going to meet from 5 to 5:30, and we're going to make it a little looser. Grab a drink, grab some food, and we'll make it a little less formal, just to mix things up. I think that helps in a number of ways, and none maybe even more important than the fact that we're all unable to get out into our normal routines and see our friends and go to our favorite restaurants and do all of the fun things that we like to do, and that that can help from that perspective as well.
That's great. Yeah, I love that. Let's just have one more question here, and this one is kind of zooming out to the future, and it might be more of a business operations question, but what do you guys think about whether employers will downsize their office space since they're finding that employees are working from home, so maybe they don't need as much square footage moving forward? Has that been discussed in your companies at all? Dominic, do you want to start?
Yeah, AECOM's always looked at that and continues to do so as a regular business practice. I do see that I do expect that our society will take some positives away from this situation, and just as you described, they'll realize, a lot of employers maybe that didn't want to commit to a work at home program will realize that it does work, that we do have the technology, that the staff and people are flexible enough to make that work. And I think it may lead to some downsizing of offices, but I think the bigger effect is it will really help with commuting. I think you'll see people more willing to work at home, companies more willing to allow employees to work at home, and it'll give some relief on our peak rush hours. I think you'll see on top of that, not just people working from home, but working more flexible hours. There may be people that like to start their workday at 6 a.m. and there may be others that want to start at 8 a.m. or 10 a.m. And I think employers will realize that that can work. Maybe employees want to work from home for the morning and then come in and work the afternoon in the office, things like that. I think we really will. I think that's the positive. One of the positives we'll see out of this. It was sort of a forced beta test, if you will.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I agree, definitely 100%. And I think as well, everything Dominic just said, as well as it may be even expanding employers' view of, hiring, right? If with more work from home and seeing how this beta test, as Dominic mentioned, works. Now, if you've got a key hire, maybe you're not limited to a specific market. You can open that up, and I think this really does have the opportunity to be a game changer longer term.
Okay, perfect. So another question here. How do you know if your employees are working? That's a kind of a trust question. It's one that we've encountered before when we've approached employers about setting up a telework program kind of pre-virus. So are there any norms? I know, Brian, you were talking about how you have the manager element of your intranet. Do you want to, sorry, yeah. Dominic or Brian, sorry, either one.
Oh, I can start. This is Brian. Yeah, I mean, we've always sort of had a culture of trust and trusting employees to take on work and meet their deadlines and everything, and that nothing really changes there when it comes to telework. Our guidance does for managers does include more frequent check-ins. It's kind of replacing that that the office walk by or meet at the water cooler with virtual options, right? But at the end of the day, you have to trust your employees, and this just puts that to the test a bit more. But we're all professionals. We're all signing our timesheets at the end of the week, and you know, this is just a kind of an extension of that.
Okay, great. Dominic?
Yeah, everything Brian said is on point with the way we operate as well. There's a lot of trust. There is a lot. There's timesheets like Brian mentioned, so managers will see how much time each person spent on projects. And you know, we have regular team meetings that are weekly team meetings where we discuss workload and we know who's doing what. And so we have expectations that, you know, employees will get a certain amount of work done on a project, make a certain amount of progress. And if that is, you know, not happening, the supervisors will be able to tell pretty quickly. So it hasn't become an issue, but it is certainly on our minds, and it is something we do look for, but it really isn't much of a concern.
Okay, great. And then last question kind of ties into this, the one that you just answered, and that's about performance evaluations. I know many of our 5-star employers that we work with, they do have a regular performance evaluation system for their employees. Do you guys expect any changes to the way that you evaluate your team members, considering they're working from home? Has that been brought up at all? Either one.
Yeah, this is Dominic. We haven't broached that topic, but I don't expect that this will really affect how the performance will be evaluated. If anything, it may bring some opportunities to give out extra kudos to folks that really did go over and above during this transition and help out.
Great. Brian, do you have anything to add?
No, I'll kind of echo what Dominic said there. I mean, I think day-to-day performance, nothing really changes here with regards to performance evaluation. I mean, I think it does take, you know, for some people, it's not easy to work from home, and that may be, they may be tested, right? So there may be a component, especially if this stretches on for a long period of time, where someone's ability to be productive from working from home will obviously play a factor into performance evaluations, but that's no different from, you know, their performance evaluation and the performance when they're coming into an office. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm going to pass it back to Destree. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for participating in the Q&A. Thanks to Dominic and Brian for you really sharing your experience and helping other employers kind of navigate through this new working condition. Before I let everyone go, I do want to show everybody Telework series. The next one is for tomorrow. It's for the season Telework program, expanding and adapting for company-wide remote work. So feel free to tune in. We have additionally 2 different key presenters, both who are part of our ICommute employer program. And it's really these opportunities that we have that is very helpful to others as we share our experiences kind of going through this new phase of working with each other. So if you haven't already, please visit the icommutesd.com webpage for the webinar sign up, as well as the other resources for helping to provide more information to your employees for telework, for your telework programs. So thank you everyone for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time and really, you know, learning from each other and sharing the knowledge that we have and experiences. Have a wonderful day.